Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sean Lang. I've spent the last several years building and operating a digital agency that has now grown past 50 people, which has definitely shaped the way that I think about the decisions that start to really matter once things start to get complex. Today, I'm joined by T. Christian Helms, founder of Helms Workshop. Helms Workshop is a full-service branding agency specializing in consumer goods and hospitality. Man, good to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
Absolutely. So your website, first of all, is beautiful, which is, I would expect nothing less from a branding agency, but I'd love for you to sort of walk us through what is the origin story? How did you get into this in the first place?
Yeah, it's it's a long one. I went to school in North Carolina for journalism, went to grad school in Atlanta for brand design, worked in New York for a little while, got burned out there, moved to Austin, got a job at an amazing agency called McGarrett Jesse. And at the same time, I was doing a lot of freelance work in the music industry, back when you could actually make money in the music industry.
I remember that.
I was a big indie rock kid, and so I was at shows like 4 or 5 nights a week anyway, so I figured, "Why not get these guys to pay me to be pay me to be there?"
Absolutely.
So I ended up working on packaging, merch, posters, backdrops for bands like Spoon, The Hold Steady, Wilco, Modest Mouse. Just all these bands that I absolutely adored, became my clients, which was fantastic. This is, early 2000s, so, freelancing wasn't as robust, or as accepted, back then as it is now, and, a magazine called, Communication Arts wanted to do a feature on my work, so I kinda needed to jump off on my own before I got my ass handed to me by the agency, and the agency is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but I was able to make a pretty lateral move to working for myself, and then it was myself plus, a few contract folks, myself plus a few full-time, made the transition from music into what I was educated to do, which was brand design, which was really my core competency. And from there, it's just been slow and steady growth for the past 15 years. We're about 16 folks, and yeah, we work on brands as big as Disney and Harley Davidson and Jack Daniels, but we work on smaller startups as well.
That is really cool. I have some questions on how you find those sort of marquee clients. But first, I want to ask the transitional question, which is you went from freelancing to suddenly having an agency. Was it a conscious choice to create an agency, or was it just sort of a means to an end to work with more clients?
No, I think I always wanted, primarily to be a creative director, and no one would let me do it. So I had to kind of start my my own agency to do what I wanted to do. And it's, any agency owner will tell you it's kind of a blessing and a curse, but on most days, most good days, it's a blessing.
What's your favorite thing about it?
My team, I have amazing human beings that I work with every day. No weak links, no big egos, super supportive of each other, awesome culture. I learned many years ago that you can hire the third best portfolio if they're a fantastic human being, because I can teach you to be a great brand designer. I can't teach you to be a good human being. That ship has already sailed by the time you.
Yeah, that's definitely very, very true. I mean, one thing that one theme that comes up often when I'm talking with other folks who run creative shops is how hard of a time they have sort of training the idea of taste. How have you found that?
It's interesting. I think, one, I hire well and we pay well, so that helps in terms of grabbing folks who already have a certain level of taste. But we also tend to hire folks who are unicorns, who have a core competency that is their official job description, but have lots of interest and skill sets that are sort of on the periphery of that. I forget who coined it, but you call it a T-shaped person, like they have a really deep expertise in one place, but
Hmm.
little bit about a lot of things on top. And I think that makes the more you know about culture and life and history and all of those, those ancillary things, the better brand designer you are. It's about exposure. It's about watching what's happening in the world outside of just the design annuals, and incorporating that into the voice and the character of your work.
Yeah, I love that concept of the T-shaped person because it paints a very, very sort of obvious picture of what you're looking for. Where do you find those people? I will say that a lot of very, very talented marketers, very, very talented owners are very, very bad at finding the people that they need to have on their team. And it sounds like that is something that you're pretty good at. So where do you find these people? How do you find them? What are you looking for? How are you vetting them? What's your like invisible calculus that you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. In the early days, I would find diamonds in the rough and kinda teach them to be great brand designers. Now I find, again, exceptional human beings, folks that, are really good at what they do, and we're fortunate in that when we announce that we're hiring for a position, we just get I mean, like any agency, we just get flooded with applications, kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly, you
Hmm.
know? And we have a pretty rigorous, interview cadence and policy, for potential folks, and I don't get to talk to them until the very end. My team just doggedly vets out the folks who are not a fit or who are only in it to boost their portfolio for a year so they can bounce. Um, and that helps a ton. And then the other piece is we just target folks that we want to work with. I keep in touch with creatives all over the country, locally, at all levels, and just let folks know I love the work that they're doing. And often that comes back home when we're hiring, and somebody wants to join a team who's maybe been a freelancer for a while. And then beyond that, just referrals. Like we have all these wonderful people who work for us, and they refer people that they know. So more often than not, we're hiring someone we know, rather than someone we've never met.
Absolutely. Yeah, that kind of brings up the very, very important concept of just sort of building and maintaining that bench. I
Yeah,
think that's one of those things that until you really feel the pain of not having the bench, you don't understand how important it is. A lot of founders do spend most of their time, reaching out for sales, like
yeah,
more clients, more prospects, etc. But I think one of the most important types of people you should be selling to are people that you want on your team at the end of the day.
absolutely.
And that's I find that that's one of the most missed opportunities in terms of like high leverage things that someone who actually owns an agency can do is just spend time surrounding yourself with people that one day you're like, I hope one day I get a chance to work with this person. I hope one day I get a chance to work with that person because eventually you probably will.
Yeah. I think the other thing is, and this is kind of echoing, piggybacking on what you said, I think agencies often forget when they're putting messaging out in the world that the audience is also the people inside the building. Your team,
Hmm.
what kind of agency you are, what those values are, what you stand for, what you won't do. And that helps a ton as well.
Absolutely. That's actually one thing that I harp on quite a bit on the podcast and to some of my sort of up and coming clients as well is the importance of like creating culture and actually drawing a line in your sand in the sand and saying like these are our core values. This is how we see the world. This is how this agency sees the world. This is what we believe, and this is how we conduct ourselves because of it. And it's generally such a again, I come back to leverage. It's such a high leverage thing that you can do because it kind of creates the T Christian Helms when he's actually not in the room is you still have a team of people who think and see the world the way that you do. So you don't really need to worry. I wonder if people are making the right decisions because by default the culture makes sure that they do.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And at this point, like we did start as sort of a founder led, figurehead kind of agency. And at this point, we are really a collective team. And those guys build the culture as much as I do at this point, which is just, I'm overjoyed about that. The fact that they definitely understand how I see the world and the industry and clients and interaction and creativity and all those things, but they've also added to it and augmented it and made it even more sort of wild and wonderful than it was before, which is just an absolute blessing.
I love that. If you could point to one of your sort of guiding North Star values at the agency, what would it be?
If you pull up our website and go to the About section, there's a series of maxims that we kind of believe. And one of them, it literally says it on the website, we do not work with assholes. And that includes us. That is on our website. Folks who want to hire us see that. And it's actually ended up being a great new business tool. When we're going through a new business deck and that slide comes up, if everybody laughs and jokes that they might not be the right fit for us, then they're probably the right fit for us because they have a sense of humor. The folks who just get stone faced and uncomfortable, then we start to worry a little bit. It's been a
That's the
pretty good
tell.
this test.
Yeah, no, I love that. I've heard that from a few different agencies, but I think one of the big things is that a lot of people, once money is flashed around, they suddenly have a really hard time actually living by that maxim or by that value. But I mean, then I point back to you and say, well, it's not a real value. Then it's a nice to have. It's something that you like to put on the wall, right? It's virtue signaling at that point.
Exactly, and we're really big on that. Like, we're an agency that's a little smaller than we could be, so we can pick and choose the folks that we work with. That's not to say that once a year, somebody doesn't slide under the radar and fool us. It's almost like clockwork, but it's rare. It's maybe once a year, and we remedy those situations pretty quickly. We are a people-first agency for sure, and life is too short to work with people who are toxic for your team.
100%, and that goes for clients, and that goes for people on the team as well. Like,
Oh,
nobody is too good, right? If you never wanna have that rock star that, is worth so much to you, but also kind of creates
oh, yeah.
havoc and chaos wherever they go in the agency. Like,
Yeah.
it's never worth it. You can again try to justify it, but at the end of the day, it's never, ever worth it.
Yeah, and the cool thing is the more you do work with really great clients who are fantastic people in an energized, sort of, empowering, uplifting process, it shows in the work, and it starts to bring in more work from people like that, or referrals from amazing clients who say, "Hey, I talk to this other business owner pretty often. You should work with them because 'cause they're fantastic too." And I feel like we're already on the team at that point because we've gotten such a ringing endorsement from our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, okay, walk me back to maybe a standout challenging time in the agency. What was going on, and how did you guys come through it?
How much time do you have?
Yeah, pick one. Just pick one
Yeah,
to start.
this is an easy one. So a number of years ago, as we were kind of beginning to grow, I got hit with Lyme disease. Didn't know it at the time, was undiagnosed for about a year and a half. It hit me out of the blue like a sledgehammer. No energy, fibromyalgia, joint pain, just ridiculous cluster headaches. Couldn't walk across a room without having to lie down and rest. If you told me a phone number, I couldn't write it down before I would forget it. Like, I couldn't even really take part in conversations because my brain fog had me in such a lag that by the time you said something and I thought, "This is an opportunity for me to say something interesting." Now, what would that be? The conversation's already 5 minutes down the road, right? So I kind of became this zombie hermit. My wife did a ton to take care of me. I eventually got diagnosed, but then nobody could figure out how to treat it, and they said basically, "There's so much lasting damage that won't be able to be fixed at this point." The studio was on life support. I was practically on life support, and they sent me to this doctor in the Northeast where doctors in New York send you if they just don't know what to do with you. And long story short, this guy had healed himself of the same thing back in the 80s, literally lying in his bed with a rotary telephone, talking to doctors and physicians and neuroscientists and you name it. And he worked with me over a number of years on a protocol that got me back healthy.
Wow.
So that's about as challenging as it can get on a personal and professional front.
No
But
kidding.
then the rub is you come out of that and you've got this new lease on life and this new perspective, but your agency is barely alive and socially you haven't been around anybody in a couple of years. So I had to kind of build back a life in an agency, which gave me an opportunity to build it into the thing that I really wanted it to be because I had some
Mm.
perspective. It's a wild ride. I would not recommend it, but I'm for it in a weird way.
No kidding. So, wow, yeah, that definitely must have been hard. I mean, not even just on the agency side, but just at that point, health trumps everything, right?
Yeah.
The
Def
agency at that point does not matter compared to just surviving, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think the worst part is feeling that terrible and not knowing what it is or if it's ever gonna stop. Like, that's terrifying. So, once we had a plan of action, I was all about it, and it freed me up to reengage the agency as well. So ultimately, it's a big part of how we got where we are in a really weird backwards way.
yeah, no, I mean, I absolutely. I mean, the agency is to some extent an extension of you, so that makes perfect sense. What did you when you were rebuilding the agency, so like the second version of the agency, what did you leave behind, and what was new?
I think early on, our processes and structure was pretty loose, which when you're small is fine, but as you grow and scale, you need to kind of have that stuff dialed in so that everybody's on the same page and knows what they're doing. I think, again, we were so leader focused early on which ultimately didn't serve us well. And it allowed us to really start to build that more collective team who have a real stake in who we are and what we're doing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Are there any particular things that things that you put in place that were particularly high impact?
I hired an amazing brand manager who became essentially an operating partner in the business and took a tremendous amount of weight off my shoulders and allowed me to do the things that I do best and offload the things that I either don't do well or just have no interest in doing. And that was pretty revolutionary. And really, I'll credit that as being one of the sparks that helped us sort of springboard into this era of the agency.
I mean, that must have allowed you to really start to focus on those really, really key areas that light you up and also bring the most value to the agency.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we'd gotten to a point before I got sick where I was just spinning plates nonstop. I was the
Mhm.
I was the writer, I was the creative director, I was hands-on designing, like way too many hats, right? And it let me just focus on one plate or two plates to spin. And I could spin those beautifully, but you start to stack too many things in that camp and it's not sustainable.
Absolutely. So what does your average day look like now?
Oh, it varies, but it's great. Usually, I mean, you've got a lot of internal meetings, creative reviews, new business meetings, agency marketing, which I do a ton of. So it allows me to a degree to kind of stack my day the way I want to. I know I need to accomplish this week and this month and this year, but I can be sort of particular and picky and choosy about where I slot those things in.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, I want to come back to an earlier call out, which was you mentioned a number of the brands that you get to work with now. It sounds like you work with dream clients. You work with like marquee logos, and I'd love to hear how you got to that point because most people don't ever get that opportunity, or at least they maybe the listeners right now are listening and they're working with small local brands, and they're like, how does one ever actually work with an enterprise, global brand? And I can remember being in that spot, being like, that'll
Yeah,
never be us. Yeah, my agency now works with Crocs and all sorts of other big brands as well, and there is kind of a logical like
there
you
is.
you step and for what we found, but I don't want to take away from what you're going to say, but what we found is it's very based on making the right relationships and meeting the right
Mhm.
people. That's kind of what we found. But how did you go about that? How did you start to find these like absolutely incredible clients?
Slow and steady growth. We started by doing really remarkable, award-winning, press-generating work for small clients, and that would get the eye of slightly bigger clients, and we
Mhm.
just ratcheted that up over time, probably very similar to you. I think sort of a bellwether moment for us is we got an opportunity to pitch, Brown-Forman on a huge global rebrand of Southern Comfort, which in my opinion, we still had no business of getting, like, we were still small and scrappy. But I flew up to Louisville and made this pitch and just absolutely won their hearts. And they chose us over these giant marquee agencies. And it really helped to show folks like, oh, these guys can do global work. Like they're not
Mhm.
just doing interesting work for, mid-sized regional brands. These guys can swing big. And that just brought more and more.
One thing that I have noticed a lot of agency owners do in situations like this where they actually get the opportunity to take a big swing is they fumble it because don't they don't scope it or price it in a way that even puts them in the same sort of like playing field as everybody else. So when you knew that you were walking into this meeting with this potentially transformational client with a very different context than probably a lot of the other brands you'd worked with in the past, how did you make sure that you actually came in the same playing field, basically?
I think one of the things that was fortunate is that going in after working at Pentagram in New York, I had a sense of what big clients were like. And even though I didn't get into the mechanics of those estimates, I knew that the same project with the same deliverables for a smaller client would take this much time and effort, and the bigger the bureaucracy, that just starts to expand exponentially, right? The wheels move slower, there are more levels of hierarchy and approval, and so was able to keep that in close consideration, in building that proposal.
It's definitely a different world, and that must have been super helpful having that context going in. I remember when we first started talking to our first 10-figure prospect. and suddenly the legal team was involved, and we were redlining contracts, and suddenly there was a
Oh, yeah.
procurement team, and we're like, there's like 50 people involved already, and there's only 8 people on our team. Like, this is insane. It's just like a completely different world. But once you've
Yep.
gone through that a couple times, you learn how to play the game, and you learn that I mean, all these people kind of have to justify their position, and we kind of need to just give them a couple months to justify those salaries before we actually get to the real stuff, which is like get to the work and get to the deliverables.
Exactly, and when you get to the work, find your allies and get them on board before the big presentation.
How do you make them look good? That's all that matters, is make this
1,000%.
person look good. That's it.
And the answer is the meeting before the meeting. You walk through
Mm.
everything with them beforehand, get their notes so that they are right in lockstep with you when you go into the presentation, and then you brag on how brilliant they are. And usually they are. Like, people in those positions got there for a reason, and I think sometimes they can get a little burned out or jaded. But when you get a wild-eyed, passionate, young agency like we were with Southern Comfort, it kinda reinvigorates their team. My friend Chris Bonbright, who was their head of research after that project, left and started his own company because he was like, "I wanna work for you guys. I don't wanna work for these guys, and I can't work for you, so I'm starting my own thing." And that's, like, massive compliment, you know? Just blew me away.
Yeah, and hey, maybe he's still on the bench. You don't know, right?
Oh, he's around. We hire him all the time for consumer research.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I
it's
love it.
perfect. Yeah, I love he's golden.
That's fantastic. So, uh, question that I had while we were talking through this is what is the difference between just good work and award-winning work?
That is an answer that's changed for me over time. I think when you are a young creative, you want to listen as little as possible, go away and make something you think is amazing, and then try to convince the client that it's amazing.
Mhm.
That's young creative. At this stage in the game, the best work is when you are collaborative with your client and you find the answer together. You bring them into the process with a real voice and a real presence. And you're comfortable in saying, I don't know what this is going to be, versus knowing immediately what it should be and just trying to sell that home. Um, and funny enough, that's the work that really drives results for clients. We just did a big rebrand for a regional brewery up in Alberta called Big Rock, and their sales jumped 47% after
Wow.
the work that we did. Like, for me, that's a better award than being in some cool publication. Like, we moved the needle and really helped that company pull out of a tough spot where it might not have been around. Like, that for me is just golden.
Now that highlights a really, really important point. I was actually, uh, I gave a talk to a local marketing group yesterday, and then actually earlier yesterday, I was talking to one of my clients who has a creative agency as well, and sort of the similar thing that we're talking about is when we get really enamored with like the deliverable because we're a creative, for example, we think that the deliverable is the thing that the client cares about, and it's actually not. It's the outcome that that deliverable creates.
You will hear me say this a million times, and I've written it a million times. Branding is not the things that we make, it's the things that we make possible. So
Hmm.
you and I are on the exact same page there.
It's huge, and I do think that that is part of the transformation needed to go from young creative to mature creative is just knowing the value in the thing that you're creating. It's as much as like I used to when I was like I'm a musician as well, and I used to be such an elitist. I had no respect for anything that had any kind of commercial success at all. Just get that shit away from me. Like, ugh, what's on the radio? No. And you start to as you grow up and you get older with any kind of creative pursuit, you start to actually respect and value the amount of additional thought and packaging that's gone into creating this piece of art that's going to be consumed by more people, and this is actually achieving a goal, and this is actually like this is sellable. And I mean, to a point, there's still certain things that are kind of like, ugh, that's kind of gross. Like, I wish you didn't do that. This is bubblegum. But going from trying to, again, I'm going to use the perspective of music. I think it's actually easier to write it's easier to write a good indie or rock song than it is to write a pop song that millions of people are going to be singing and humming for decades and decades. That's actually, even if I don't want to hear that song ever again in my entire life, it's much more difficult to write that song. Once you actually try, you go, oh, this is way harder than I thought. And it's the difference between like understanding Again, it's sort of just like the individual deliverable, the thing versus like the outcome that you want that thing to have. I know it's totally unrelated to what we're talking about, but I feel like it's also related as well.
No, it worked for me. We're on the same page. We were the same judgmental music kid for sure. And now my perspective is if you like Ed Sheeran as much as I like Bill to Spill, those are both good things. Like if you get the same thing out of it, I'm glad for you. He's not my thing, but he's a talented dude. It's not in my lane. So yeah, I have appreciation for that. That said, you know good and well there are like 3 bands that I'll just throw under the bus in a heartbeat. So it only goes so far. Like, I'm much more enlightened than I was before, but I'm not 100% yet.
And don't ever go full enlightened. You need to have a few. You need to have a few. You got it,
That's
right?
the banner quote for this episode. That's the T-shirt. Don't ever go 100% enlightenment.
Exactly, exactly. That's great. We're winding up. We're getting close to the end here, and I want to ask a few questions. What's something that you would tell yourself, knowing what you know now, when you were just starting out?
Don't treat every project like it's do or die. If this one's not good, everybody's going to think I'm a fraud or I'm not good. Realize that you're building a portfolio over a life, and there are going to be swing and misses. There are going to be challenging clients who don't let you do good work. But when you find those opportunities to do something magical, you better stay up all night. You better absolutely run at it as hard as you can and overdo it and over deliver because those opportunities are rare and rare. And the more you get them and knock them out of the park, the more frequent and common they get.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Now, as a creative agency, I'm curious on your take, and this is kind of almost an annoying conversation, but I feel like it's really important to have. What is your take on how AI is affecting your industry right now?
Yeah, it's what everybody's talking about, right? We're in the process of defining what our position on it is as an agency, and it's a big conversation, right? Um, for me, where I am is that I still see AI as a tool. It's a hammer. You can use it to build something beautiful, or you can use it to tear something down, or make a mess of something. Um, it still needs to be led by human creativity. Learning language models are great for some things, but they are an amalgamation of all the things that have already been done and exist out in the world. So if you want something similar to everything else that's out there that it can reference, then sure, use that. But if you want to do something remarkably different, that's got to come from people.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Final question. What can other, we'll say, fledgling creative agencies right now learn from Helms Workshop or be better at what they do?
Build in the processes and people and values that you want to exemplify much earlier in the life of the agency. Um, I think I just kind of expected people to get it early on, which is not the way to teach people. So the earlier you can define what you are and what you're not, who your tribe is, who your clients are, and who's not a good fit for you, it benefits people. It benefits your people, and it benefits clients. Um, we want people to be able to look at us and our work and say they're probably not a fit for us. That's great because it makes room for the people who see us and go, "Holy shit, we want to work with those people."
Love that. Very, very sage advice.
I'll take it.
Well, man, thanks for coming on. It's been great.
This is great. You're
And
fantastic, Sean.
where can people find out more about you and Helms Workshop?
HelmsWorkshop.com. We're on the Instagram as well as I'm at T Christian Helms, but I'm really much better at LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.